So last class we saw the life cycle of the servlet. When does the servlet instance get created? When the first request comes. And as soon as the first request comes, the servlet instance gets created, and then we see that the constructor and init method of the servlet gets executed, and then the service method gets executed for the first time. Then after that, the servlet is waiting. After the completion of the execution, the servlet waits for more requests. Means the servlet instance doesn't get destroyed. It waits for further request. Next request comes, directly it goes on to execute the service method. So the life cycle of this servlet is taken care by the servlet container now. So the servlet container knows exactly when to create this object and exactly when to destroy this object. So that is why this particular class, we call it as a component. Okay, this servlet is called as a component because the life cycle of component are taken care by containers. The life cycle of components are taken care by containers, but the life cycle of your normal objects is taken care by JVM. So that's a huge difference. Okay, now why I'm stressing so much on a component is because you'll come across many containers in your life. Okay, so when you come across containers in your life, so understand that a class which is running inside the container will be controlled by the container itself. And the container will be calling some specific methods. In one container it will call some specific method. Like in servlet, the container is going on to call what? Init, service and destroy method. Only these methods will call, not call any other method. So this is the life cycle what you saw. A servlet life cycle is this: instantiation, creating a servlet instance happens only once. Done. Initialization is done with help of, means if you want to do any initialization for your servlet, we take the help of the init method, and it will also be executed only once. Service method, yes, it will execute for every request. So what logic you want to execute for every request, write it there. Finalization means if you want to release any resources before your servlet instance get destroyed, write it in destroy method. Understood? And destruction will happen automatically when the server shuts down. So we cannot create, the creation and destruction of the servlet instance is completely controlled by container. We cannot control it. So container knows exactly when to create it, container knows when to destroy it, and after creating and destroying it, in between it knows when to call the life cycle methods also. Done? So this is a very important concept now. So this you understand very clearly now. So fine. So having understood this much, okay, I'll talk about one more thing now. There's till now, according to you, the servlet instance can be created only when the what? First request comes, correct? Now I'll show you one more approach. The servlet instance can be created, if you want, when the server starts. Okay, the servlet instance can be created, if you want, when the server starts. When the server starts up, no, that time only you can do it. Okay, let me show you the output first, then we'll discuss which one is the best. So what you have to try to understand is, servlet instance can be created in two ways now. This is a very, very, very important interview question now. When does the servlet instance get created? When does the, or I'll write it here, when does the servlet instance get created? Very important interview question. Today, yesterday, tomorrow, what we see will all be interview questions. So see this, it gets created the servlet instance gets created in two ways. One, which you saw, when the first request comes. I write it in numeric so that it will be highlighting. First request comes. Done? That is one way. Second, you can create the servlet instance when the server starts up. So this we have seen when the first request comes, correct? Huh? I showed you in the last class, the output also I showed you. When I made the first request, the servlet instance was getting created. Today I will cover this, when the server starts up. So if you want the servlet instance to be created when the server starts up, just you have to do is you have to use a tag. Use a tag, this one, load on startup in web.xml file. That's it. You have to use this tag. Means, I'll write it here, see. You'll be having a servlet tag now. Where you'll be writing it now? servlet name, servlet class, this should be here, servlet class. So we'll say servlet name, close it, and we'll be closing servlet class. Supposing one second, com dot cluster dot login servlet. Yeah, what is the servlet name we'll give? Login. That name could be anything. So what you do inside the servlet tag only? See, these are the two child tags of what? Servlet. Servlet is a child tag of what? Web app. You know the hierarchy now. Here inside servlet only use what? Load, on, startup. If you use this tag, okay, close it. Load, on, startup. This is a very, very important entry question, this tag. Understood? Close this. Everything is normal, just I added a tag here. And here you have to provide a numerical number, 1, something like that. I'll explain what is that number. You use this tag, finished. As soon as you start the server, no, servlet instance will be created. And you know the life cycle, when the servlet instance gets created, what happens? Static block, instance block, constructor, and init, all will execute. Understood? Now when the servlet instance is getting created, these 4 things is going to happen now. See, remember this. When servlet instance gets created, okay, I'll put the question like this. What happens when the servlet instance get created? Okay, see the answer. Static block executes. Yes? Then which one? Instance block executes. Then what? Constructor executes. Default constructor you put it. Default constructor. Other constructors are not executed here. Because you know the approach what they are taking. They are calling which method? C.new instance. C.new instance will always call what? Default constructor. Default constructor executes. So that is why I don't write constructor. Understood? Where? In servlet. If you write it, make it as public constructor. Because if you write a constructor and don't make it public, no, it cannot be invoked by the container. Supposingly I write, see this, class, hello servlet. Till now you are not writing, yes or no, you are only writing what? Do post method. So if you are writing only this much, what happens? The default constructor will be added. And by whom now? Compiler. The default constructor is always added by the compiler. Okay. And always the default constructor will be public only. You try writing on constructor today. You write on default one only. Don't make it public. Your servlet instance only will never be created. You follow now? This is all what now? Core Java. You know core Java, no? So this is how the core Java plays a very important role in programming now. Done? So you remove this, means if you write a constructor and remove what? So these are all interview questions, that's why I'm putting it. If I write a default constructor and don't make it public, what will happen? The object will not be created. Understood? So if you want to write a constructor, write it, but make it as public default constructor. And supposingly you write int I, simply I'm writing, your object of servlet will not be created. So even if you write a default constructor without public, or if you write an argumented constructor also, your object will not be created. So that's why I'm stressing there, it calls what? Default constructor. So when the servlet instance is getting created, what happens? Static block, instance block, default constructor executes, lastly what? Init method executes. These 4 things will happen. But in the interview when you go, you do not tell this, because your interviewer will never know these 2. We are very professionals in Java, we know all this. There are so many interviewers who do not know all this subject. Okay, so do not tell that. When you go to interview, what will you tell? When the servlet instance gets created, Only tell these 2 points. Default constructor gets executed. This is for your information, I am giving it to you. And I show that execution process. I'll prove it. I'll prove it also. Understood? But in the interview, don't tell it. You learn it. You understood how you understand how the things are getting executed. Let's only keep it for your information. So you should know from, see, when you go to interview, you have to understand this. Too much also, if you tell no, that is very dangerous. Okay, you should know how to balance your interview. Okay, so that's what I'm telling, and you should justify it. One more thing is, if you tell too much also, you should be able to justify it, which you can't do. So follow some standard interview answers so that you can clear it very easily. So that's what I'm telling. What happens when the select instance gets created? Tell only these two: default constructor gets executed and init method executes. So that is what is going to happen now. I'll show you the output now. Clear? All this what I told you now, I'll be showing you with output only. Whatever I told now. First I show you with what? First I show you with okay. First I show you when the first request comes. That point I show you. So everything notice now. It's all about R&D now. And this R&D is nothing but your interview question. You want interview questions in Servlet? Take all I'll give today. Today, tomorrow, day after tomorrow, or all the 3 classes, next 3, 4, or whatever classes you're going to see, all are interview questions. Clear? So practice it. Say I'll take all member life cycle. Clear? Life cycle app, I'll take this. We are only having on Servlet here now. Which one? All member life cycle. We'll play around with this only. This gives you a lot of information, this program. It looks very simple. Done? So I'll start the server now, or I deploy it. Fine. The server starts, so I'll make the request now. One is what? HTML file, yeah. You can see the console. Right now there is nothing in the console. So when I deploy it, will the Servlet instance get created? No. Now see, when I make the request to HTML, will the Servlet instance get created? You know your HTML now? See, still the Servlet, this is your HTML now. Is it getting created? Okay, see, this is your HTML. When you make a request to HTML also, the Servlet is not getting executed. Done? You know your Servlet. Last class I had shown you this class. Yes or no? What all it is having? Fine. See, look at your interview questions now. So now, this is your, I deployed. Servlet instance did not get created. I made the request to HTML. Servlet instance did not get created. Now I'll make the first request. What happens? See, now the instance got created. After that, what it goes on to do? Notice. Assume that one more client. This is one more client. I'm making a request. One more client. Or if you want to see, I'll open a new browser only. Outside I'll open. If you work from outside, you can't see the console output. That's all. You'll have to move around 2 screens. So I'm typing something. Enter. You can see here now. Only what is getting executed. Do post or do get gets executed. Done. So every time the request comes, it is executing. Are you comfortable with this? Fine. You make one more request. One more client I'll open. Which one? Chrome I'll open. Fine. One more user. He'll enter. Vinay. Fine. Whatever you want to enter. See. It goes on executing. Okay. But now, what I'm going to show you is, first immediately I'll go to load on startup. Clear? See this. I'll make the change. See where I'm using it? Here, inside the servlet. These are all child tags. Load on startup, you have to give a number. I'll give 1. I'll tell you what is that number. Done? So now see, I'll deploy it. Generally when you make changes like this in XML file, see, server has not restarted. So what has to happen now? You have to restart it. It's not been updated. So what you do? Restart it. Let's try to redeploy it. If it happens, fine, or you have to restart it. But look carefully, what happens? Yeah, it's asking for restart. See what will happen now. This is a console. This is a server, no? 1 second. See, I just made the, I have not even made the request. I just deployed it. What happened? Static block, instance block, all is getting executed. So now what is happening? The server instance has got created when the Servlet instance has got created when the server starts up. The servlet instance gets created when the server starts up. And look, these two are important for us. Which one? Constructor and init method is getting executed. Clear? In my program, I have written a default constructor, notice, and it is public. It should be public, else you will not get the output. Done? Fine. If you write it, be careful. Better is don't write. In servlets especially. If you write it, make it as public. So you got it now. So let's make the request now. See, this is the thing now. We'll make the request. This is the login.html. Okay, I'll make the request now. So I'll make the first request. See this? This is the first request you are doing now. Ravi, Kumar, something I'll do. Now what happens? Only doGet is getting executed. M1 has been called inside doGet. It's getting executed. I'll remove it if you want. Which one? You can remove it. Means again you have to redeploy it. If you make any changes, redeploy it. Done? Are you clear with this? We'll delete it only. Clear? So now redeploy. You can see again I'm redeploying. Notice. See, it got redeployed. I didn't redeploy it. Any changes done, what will happen? Server will update automatically sometimes. See this, what it happened. You can see the destroy method. Today you can see the destroy method now. Old one was removed. And then what? The new application got updated. So as soon as it got updated into the server read your web.xml file. It saw that you have used load on startup for which one? Servlet. So that is why you can see all these things getting executed here. Understood? All these things are getting executed. So let us again, I'll make the request now. See, I'll open a browser, make the request, refresh it, I'll enter some value. Now see what happens. Only doGet is getting executed. See here very clearly. You sit and do R&D on this now. Understood? So then next, again one more value, one more Unai is user. He'll type in again. Fine. See, only doGet is getting executed. If you want still more confirmation, what I'll do? I'll make some changes again. Something I'll do inside. Okay, it is do post. I'll change it to what? Do post. Something I'll make changes. So you make any changes again, what happens? See, it got redeployed. Destroy is getting executed now. But what has happened? This also got executed now. You remove load on startup now. Notice, the servlet instance will not be created when the server starts up. Now which one is a better way to create the servlet instance? They are giving you two approaches. One, they are telling, specification is telling, not me, not server people. Specification is very clearly telling the servlet instance will get created under two conditions. One, when the first request comes, or when the server starts up. Which one is a better approach? When the server starts up. Technically if you see, why? Because when you start the server, your servlet object has been created and even init method has got executed. Init method has got executed means what? Initialization code has run. Supposingly you need database connection. Already your servlet has got database connection and waiting for what? Client's request. Brilliant now. So if at all you want any resource to be used in your servlet, initialize it in init method. Agreed. But we are not waiting for the client to make request and then the init method to get executed now. Better is you do what? Load on startup. If you do load on startup, what happens? As soon as you start the server, object is created, means constructor gets executed, as well as these two will use static block and instance. Constructor and init method are getting executed. If they execute, what is happening now? Your servlet is initialized, ready, waiting for what? Requests. More brilliant now. Earlier we were wasting time. What time we are wasting? When the request comes, first request, that time the class has to be loaded. Yes, object has to be created, init method has to execute, and then service method has to execute or do post. Correct or no? When the first request comes, so much of lengthy process. But now that what is happening? Servlet instance is already ready. Now let the first request come. Directly it will execute what? Do get or do post. Service or do get or do post, it will execute. Done? So this is a better approach. So we prefer this. Now I'll remove it. See this. I'll remove what? You can see now. Okay. I'll make one more request. You see, Vinay, Ravi, only do post is getting executed. See, only do post goes on executing. Clear? One more request. Only do post goes on executing. One more ABC, ABC. Only do post goes on executing. Start printing it. Fine, it's going on executing. Fine. Now what I'll do is, again, I'll remove that web.xml now. See this. See the change. Just remove it. You can comment it. Save. Okay. So I'm commenting now. So obviously it's not got redeployed. See there? Better you, generally in web.xml if you make changes you redeploy it. Okay. Other files it will get automatically, it is synchronized. But sometimes it will not happen for web.xml. So what do you do? Again, run on server. Next, restart. Fine. But let's see the console. See the console. Is the Servlet instance got created? So it is waiting for what now? Requests. If you remove it, it will wait for requests. So fine. Let me make the request first. HTML/login.html. Sorry. Now see. I made the request. It got executed. Done. So it's your option. So here a lengthy process. Class has to be loaded, object has to be created, init has to execute, and then your service or do get will execute. So why do you want to waste time for the first user? Better you keep the servlet ready, waiting for request from the beginning itself. This is a better approach. So they are giving you two. But whatever the case, you cannot create the servlet instance. Understood? The life cycle of the servlet is taken care by container. It knows when to create it. Either if you use load on startup, it will create it when the server starts up. If you do not use load on startup, it will create when the first request comes. It knows when to do it. And they are the only two ways. But very important interview question, and I have shown you with proof. One is by hearting question and answers. Okay, I am not teaching you like that. First I told you the concept. Now I am showing you this example for what? To prove that concept. So I am teaching you concept wise, not output wise. Done? Then other questions what you have? What if I write a constructor? Which one? See this. I'll remove this public. What happens? All interview questions. What I am showing is interview question today. Clear? So now it's got redeployed. Huh? Not yet. Yeah, it's got redeployed. Okay, done. So let's make the request. HTML/ I have not used load on startup now. Login.html. Fine. So enter your name. We have not used it. So enter your name. I'll enter. So the object has to be created now. Done? What did you get? Illegal access exception. See this? Cannot access the member of the class. This is the member, but that member is what? Constructor. Done? These are all interview questions. Done. Next. I'm showing you with output only, all interview questions. I'll add public. You will get the output. You just now saw that. Yes or no? You just now saw that. What I'll do, I'll make it as public. Okay, next. This is executing. Till now you saw it. I'll bring one more. Something we are not going to send. We cannot send also. When you can't create the object only, how can you call this constructor? Yes or no? When you're creating object, that time you can call the constructor. Here there is no possible chance for you to create the object only. So how will you call this constructor? No way. So anyway, you know that now. How is the code going to execute when the first request comes? You know what happens actually. I'll be telling you in more detail later. Request.get URI will be called. There's one method. Okay, where? In request object. So as soon as you call this method, the return type of this would be a string s1. Understood? Then they'll check if s1 dot equals of, they'll be writing the code. Supposingly, let us say check. Means if I have done the mapping for login servlet, I have made login and URL form action. I have given the value as check, form action value. This is the form action value. So that time what they'll do, this is how, if it is check, they'll be writing the code class dot for name com dot, means mapping will happen now. You know mapping will be what? Check login servlet. This is a URL pattern, sorry. This is a URL. This is a servlet name. You're getting it now? This is the URL pattern. This is the servlet name. You'll have one more servlet name on top. For which one? So this is for servlet mapping what you are using. Correct. So this is for servlet. This is again servlet name. You'll have servlet class here now. So it will be what? com.cluster.login servlet class servlet. Understood? So this will be the mapping. It will identify if it is check, it will load what? com.cluster.login servlet. So when the class is loaded, what happens? Static block gets executed. Then see the c dot new instance method will be called, and it will typecast it to one interface is there. I'll show you this later. Servlet s is equal to, it will typecast it, and then it will call what, s dot means init method first will be called, s dot init method will be called. More in detail I will tell you, don't worry. And then what will be called? S dot service, and it will call the request and response object. Means this is the code written by server vendor for you. I'm writing it in part. Okay, so I'll be just talking about that code also, but this is the way it executes. So when they are calling c dot new instance, obviously which method will which constructor will call? Default constructor. Core Java now. Yes or no? So here what you have to understand among this code is it will be calling the default constructor. So let us see now. If I write a argumented constructor, what happens? See, these are all your interview questions. Please understand. I am not showing you to confuse and all. These are definite interview questions what you will be facing. Done? So you have to follow this. So see this. Whatever R&D you want to do, use this example. Superb example it is. Understood? So int I. Now let's deploy it. Is it deployed? I think illegal access, no? Okay, after illegal access, now it's got deployed, I think. Now again what we'll do, we'll make the request. What is the error you are getting? Instantiation exception, not access exception. If it is not public servlet, what you are getting? Access exception. Here it is, you are getting which exception? Instantiation. It is public, but it cannot create the instance. Done? Then more interview questions. What were you having? So do not do this. Then fine. Yeah. What happens if my form action is here? I'll make it as method is post. Okay. But in my servlet, I'll make it as do get. Most of you have done this R&D, good. But let's check it out. These are your interview questions. So there it is post means here it should be what? Do post only. There it is get means it should be do post only. If they are mismatched, you'll get some problem. See it. What you only feel it. Aren't the interview questions simple and easy? It's all about what? You doing R&D. See this. I'll make the request. It is what type of request now? Post type of request. Think what? HTML is post. This one is do get. Think redeploy it. Supposing you don't get the proper output, what you do? Redeploy it. Somewhere you feel. Restart. Like this, slowly you start taking grip of the server. Understood? You're taking grip of the server now. See, no, this one no output there. Still okay. Object is getting created. But HTTP post method is not supported by this URL. You'll get the error. So their resource was found and object was created, but which one? Service method did not get executed. That method is not executed. See now, I'll make the request one more time. First time the object will be created, but this one is not getting executed. Notice, you get this error. So these are all your entry questions. And what else I told you? Everything I covered, I think, no? Okay, these are all entry questions. Now let's come to this value now. What is 1? Okay, that is only priority, man. Priority means what, you know? Supposing I am having 5 servlets. Okay, which one should be instantiated first? Because sometimes one servlet will be depending on another servlet. Link might be there. So that is when you want to give the priority. First this one should be instantiated, then the other one, then the next one, then the next one, like that. So I can give the number. Like example, like there are 5 servlets. Hello servlet, hi servlet, okay, customer servlet, login servlet, like that. So for login customer servlet I can give number as 1. Okay, for login servlet I can give the number as 2. Hello servlet I can give the number as 3. So in that order only the servlet instances will get created. That's all. You write one more servlet and check it out. Give the number. Okay. Now that is one question. What is 1? It indicates the priority. Means which servlet instance gets created first or not. That's it. Okay. Means in which order you want to create. Now one more question would be, what happens if I give a value called as 10? There is only one servlet and I'll give the value as 10 now. So what will happen? Nothing will happen. It will search from 1 to 9. Not found, what will happen? It will create this instance only now. Done? It is searching. Are there any numbers from 1 to 9? No. Like that you can give any number. Understood? You can give 1, 2, 3, any you can give. Okay. It will go on searching. If found, it will execute in that order. If not found, directly it will execute this one only now. These are all your interview questions. So it's not still restarted server. So you can restart it. Changes in web.xml. Restart. Yes, we have used load on startup, yes or no? But what is the number I have used? 10. Still the object has got created. It searched from 1 to 9, didn't find. But still it went on to create the object. If it was there, one more servlet instance was there with the number like 8, first that would have got created. Okay. But generally we don't use this kind of numbering. We give it in proper order only, 1, 2, 3, 4. But this is an interview question. There is only one servlet. I'll give the number as 10. What will happen? This is an interview question. Because when they ask you in that load on startup, you are giving a number, what is it? You will tell it is the priority. That is the answer you will give. So obviously next thing to confuse you only will tell, okay, there is only one servlet. I'll give the priority as 100. What will happen? Nothing will happen. It will search from 1 to 99. If not found, it will execute. It will create that only one servlet instance. To confuse you only, they will do it. Done? So to be prepared for such kind of interview questions. Clear this? I think I covered much of it, and still more I'll be covering. All interview questions I'll be covering. Yeah, but here what did you understand now? Servlet instance is created under 2 conditions. 1, when the server starts up. 2, when the first request comes. Remember, very, very, very important interview question. Do not forget in your life. Understood? The amount of stress I'm putting, imagine. In spite of putting this much of stress, some people forget it when they go to interview. Done? Then next, some more questions will be there. Who will destroy the servlet instance? Okay, container destroys it. Remember these points. And all these question answers are framed. In the document is there. First you understand this, then I show you all these questions in the document only. Done? Okay. Now all this is understood now. Some more things we'll see about this is perfect now. We're getting the grip onto the programming now. Okay. So you know how to write your class now. Yes, when you write a servlet class, what you're going to do now? You will not write a public constructor. Means do not write the constructor. Avoid it. Avoid writing argumented constructors. If at all you write a constructor, let it be default. And if you write it, you know you'll make the mistake. Sometimes you'll not make it as public. Better make it as public. Understood? So that is why what I recommend is, do not write the constructor only, because the compiler will only always add the public default constructor. This is one point. Then next, if at all you want to write the code, just use only 3 methods. Which are there? init, service and destroy. Don't use any other method, because these are the only methods called by the container. Understood? Because your servlet lives and dies in the container. It's a component. Components are well managed objects. Okay. And you'll see the power of components. Very powerful they are. Understood? You are just seeing the beginning of it. They are very, very powerful, and they give immense support in programming. Okay, we'll be seeing the power of components. So this is what you should know now. Now once we have covered this much of, and this is once again class hello servlet. So when you write it, you should know now. Do you need the static block? Not required, don't write. Do you need the instance block? Not required, don't write. Do you need the constructor? Not required, don't write. Directly go with either init, servlet config, service, or do get or do post, anything. Okay, I'll be discussing the difference between the three more in detail, and last one would be destroy. That's it. So container knows when to call this method, when to call this method, and when to call this method. Perfectly it knows. You don't have to worry only. Done? So only you have to split your code now. When you write your code now, you should know what code to write where. So generally in init what will you write? Sorry. In init what do you write? Initialization code. And here what you will write? Any business logic you will write. And here means what you want to execute repeatedly for all clients. Destroy method, release the resources. Initialization code for using resources. Here releasing the resource. That's it. Yeah? Yeah, this is clear. Now everything we are getting clear. Little we'll discuss about what is XML now. Part by part I am covering everything. Understood? What is XML now? See, XML is nothing but called as full form, I have told you, markup language. I'll show you how XML is getting used now. XML is what? Markup language. Markup language means what? It has tags. Full form of XML stands as extensible markup language, the full form. XML, that's how it gets. The next point. It is used for metadata programming. This is what I'll be explaining you now. Metadata programming. Sometimes, okay, this is used for metadata programming. Yes. Yeah, I'll be telling you that. It is used for metadata programming. Actually, this in depth later you'll understand, but just note it down. Right now I cannot explain you that. So XML is used for two purposes. One is metadata programming, and the other one, it can be used as a repository. Repository means what? You can store some data there. You can store some information or data inside what? XML. But one thing remember, XML is not an executable file. You can never execute what? XML files. It is not executable. So this itself is a different subject. Which one? XML is itself a different subject. Again, what I am trying to do is, how much of information is required for a servlet program, I am giving you that much. Okay. So XML is itself a different subject. It's a language, and you know how much effort you have to put to learn what? One language. Okay. A lot of effort is required. So how much is required for servlet? That I'll tell you now. See, one is, see, I'll talk about repository. First I'll make you understand what is a repository. Little I'll give you information. See, supposingly you want to store data, no? You can store data in XML file also. I'll be explaining you this part first, which one? Repository part. Like this scene. I want to store the information about one student. So I can create my own tag called as what? Students. And here I'll have a child tag called what? Student. I'll take space here. Students. Child tag of students is what? Student. Again, child tag of student is what? SID. Again, I can have name. Again, I can have phone. Like this, you can go on having some child tags for which one? Student. Again, one more student. Like this, you can have any number of student. Again, what will you have? SID. Name, and again phone. Like this you can have any number of students. Done now? And later on you store the value. Like example 101, name is A, phone number is 111, SID 102, name is B, phone is 222. Like this you will store the values. Understood? So this is how the data will be stored. So this is an XML file. Sample I have written student.xml file. The name of this file you can keep it as student.xml file. One second. Yes, XML can be used for two things I told. One is metadata programming. Other one will be repository. I am explaining the repository part of it. First this one. Then I will come back to that. So like this. Repository means storage. You store like this. Later on, after storing this now, you can read these values into primary memory. This is secondary memory. Once you write it into a file, what it is? Secondary memory. You can read it and bring it into what? Primary memory. And you can process the values. So only you are storing some value here. Later on it will be processed only. So when you read it now, obviously these three values now, you'll put it into you'll bring it into primary memory. That's all you'll do. So for that, generally I'll be seeing it. They'll be on class student, I'll write in Java. Now see, this XML file can be read by any language. It's not that only Java should use this. This file can be used by whom now? A C program also, C++ program also, Java program also. So if C program, what they'll do? They'll read this file and they'll store these values into their variables. C++ people will read this file and store these values into their variables. Java also what it will do? Read these values and stores it into the variables. But in Java we take better approach. Instead of having 6 variables here, see this, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 6 values means what? How many variables you need? 6. One more student, 4 students are there. How many variables you need? 4 students means 12 variables. Instead of that, what we do, you are very good in this now. What will you do? You'll write on TO. So int SID string name string phone and you'll write segregators. Done? And then what will you do? You'll create the object student S1 is equal to new student and the values will be stored now. S1 dot, this is student 1. You'll call the setters and store that. Which one? 101 and all that you'll be storing. So S1 will have what value now? Like this you'll start storing. ID will be 101, name will be AAA and phone will be 111. S2 object, one more student, you'll read it. ID will be 102, name will be BBB. So these are Java objects. In Java we'll store the values in TOs like this. It's much better, we organize like this. Understood? So like this you can read this into in using C language also, C++ also, it's your wish. But you can read it in Java also. But I finally made you understand what is the concept of repository. You store the values there and later on you can bring it into primary memory. Okay. So and you read these XML files. You read these XML files. Reading the XML file is called as parsing. Technically it is called as what? Parsing. Okay. So now see, this is a big requirement. Now you might be thinking, oh, how to read an XML file? Correct? Huh? What code should I write? What logic should I write? Java says that only. You have any problem, do not worry. What I'll do? I'll give an API. For all your problems, Java goes on to give what? API. To work with XML also, Java is giving you powerful API. 2-3 lines of code you'll write now, you'll automatically get what? TO only will be ready. Full direct TO, you only have to call what now? Getter. So that is the power of Java. Understood? So to work with XML, there are many APIs. Like example to work with what? XML API. Example to work with XML. Okay, which are the different APIs? Plenty of APIs are there. SAX parser is there. SAX, where I'll write? Yeah, here I'll write. One is SAX. What is the full form of SAX? Means SAX API. We call it as SAX API. Means what? Simple API for XML. Full form. See here. Yes. AX. SAX API. Simple application programming interface for extensible markup language. Understood? Then next, DOM API, document object model. Third one, JAX-B, very powerful. This is latest. Everybody uses this today. Programmers. Java and XML binding. Java and XML binding. JAXB Getting it now? DOM, document, object, model. Many APIs are there. Now why so many APIs are there to work with XML? You might have a question. Simple. CYCLE is a read-only parser. You can only read an XML file. More than that you can't do anything. DOM, no. What it will do? I'll clear this, huh? I'll clear this TOS. Okay. So CYCLE API is only what? Read-only parser. This is what? Read and write. JAXP is also read and write. Now what do you mean by read and write? Read and write means you can read this file also, you can update the file also, or you can delete some tags also here, values. They are called as read-write parsers. Okay, but JAXP is very powerful. Powerful means what? Hardly you'll write 2-3 lines code, you'll get the output. But in DOM what you have to do? Right? There's a lot of difference. But all these APIs have been provided for one simple reason. What is that? To read and work with XML file. Which one is easy? Developers will use that. Like that you'll have many solutions. Done? So you got the idea of what is a repository. Okay. Same way what will happen now. We are storing some values in web.xml. What is that? Servlet, servlet name, servlet class. Okay. Those values also will be parsed. Understood? Those values what you are seeing in web.xml, they will be parsed. What are the values? URL pattern, some value you are given, no? Servlet name you are given some value, no? Servlet name you are given one more value. Servlet class, all these values will be parsed. But those values are used for what now? Metadata, means you are giving information about what you are deploying into the server. Now I am coming to what? Metadata programming. You are actually storing the values there and later on using it as what? Metadata programming. Okay, so what you will do now, you will store there. Now when the server starts up, now what will the server do? It will read that XML file and store all that information into what? Java objects. It will store it into primary memory. Right now what you are thinking, every time the request goes, it will be referring to XML file. It will not be referring to XML file every time. When the server started now, already that information has been parsed and stored into Java object. It is already stored. Understood? So every time a request comes, it will be referring to the value in those objects. I will be showing you very clearly with the picture. Understood? So this is what is metadata program. Metadata means, meta means what? Information. It's a Greek word. Data means you are giving some information about some data. Which is your data? Your servlet classes. They are all classes now. You are giving some information about your class mapping and all that. Slowly you will understand. See here, we are using web.xml file for, it contains what? I am talking particularly about web.xml. Not web.xml is containing what? Mapping information. Very important entry question. Don't tell all XML files contain mapping information. Don't think. See, this is not containing mapping information. Web.xml contains what? Mapping information. About what? The URL, name, class and all that. Done? So this is one idea I gave you about, means it's a vast subject. Precisely how much is required perfectly I have given to you. Understood? You don't have to worry too much now. You have to only understand about what now? Not as repository. You have to understand it only as metadata programming. That's all. Your duty right now. Clear? So I'll show you that now. How metadata programming is being done here. Shall I clear everything now? The simple introduction. So the server people are using which parser? CYCLE parser for parsing the XML. Fine, they are using the CYCLE parser. Now let's start looking at our architecture of the server. Brilliant architecture it is. So this is what we have to study now. Okay, whatever I am showing you, see, understand this is important from specification point of view. As a developer you should know this. Important from interview point of view. Important from what? SC, WCD exam point of view. Very, very important all this. It will take some 2-3 days time for you to understand this. But this diagram is my own creation. With my experience I again designed this diagram. You will not find this diagram anywhere. That's one more thing. Second thing is you'll find various other diagrams similar to this. Understood? But do not compare. All authors are trying to do what? Trying to explain some subject. You should understand the concept of the diagram. Understood? Don't go into more technical details. Why that diagram is like that? Why this diagram is like this? So always understand the concept. Once you understand, you will know how to use it now. So I am trying to present concepts to you. So this is the diagram now. See this. You have the server, you have the container. Okay. So as soon as you start the server now, first XML file is parsed. There are a lot of things which happen when you start the server. Understood? Lot of things happen. So when you start the server, first XML file will be parsed. First thing. The next thing, thread pool will be created. Understood? And after that, first what is starting? XML file. XML file will be started. When server starts now, I'll give you all the information today. When server starts, XML file is parsed. Then thread pool is created. Then server will look for what? Any servlet instance which has been used with load on startup. If load on startup has been used, server will create that servlet instance. Server will create that servlet instance. Done? Three things will happen. Still more is going to happen. Right now, three things I am telling you. Are you clear? Then next, the servlet instance. Supposingly, now I'll go on to explain you. Assuming that we have not used load on startup. Whatever I am going to explain you now, I'll be explaining you assuming that we are not using load on startup. Please understand that. So assuming that I have not used load on startup, when the first request comes, okay, one thread will come up, means see this. This is what is that XML file. See how it has passed, it has stored in Java objects. From XML file, it has read all the information, put it into Java objects. See, this is parsing, means it has already got the information. So first this will happen, then thread pool will be created. Third one, if any servlet instance is marked with load on startup, that instance would have been created. So since we are not talking about load on startup now, these two things are happening now. XML file is parsed and the other one would be thread pool is ready. Okay, so when the request comes now, see here it will check servlet mapping. Okay, this is the URL. In the servlet mapping tag now, this will be what? URL. The value for that is what? A, B, something will give. Okay, now again it will search for the servlet by name what? Those things. Now it will identify the class. Either login servlet or customer servlet, like that it will search. Once the class is identified, first request, it will be loaded into the JVM. Class start for name will happen, it will be loaded and object will be created. Once this object is created, now what will happen? One thread will come outside the pool. It will create two new request response objects. It will process it and it will give back the response. Thread will go back to the pool, but servlet instance remains undestroyed. Request response objects are destroyed. Again new request comes, new request, new response. So one thread will come outside the pool, it will create the new request and new response object, executes the same servlet, destroys those two request and response object, goes back to the pool. So thread will keep going to the pool, servlet instance remains. One more request comes, again one thread comes outside the pool, creates the request response object, executes, goes back. Understood? See, like you might have concurrent requests also, simultaneous, say 50 threads will be executing and all 50 threads will have their own copy of what? Request response objects. Please understand that. Understood? All threads will be having their own copy of request response object. So depending on the client, you will be getting that request value, request.get parameter. Supposingly A user enters, B user enters some value, C user enters some value. So three request objects are created. They are all executing the same logic. So which thread is request.get parameter? Now if supposingly one thread is executing, first thread, it is dealing with A's object. Request.get parameter, it will get the A value. Second thread, request.get parameter, it will get the B's value. Third thread, request.get parameter, it will get the C's value. Three users are there. So one thread. So they'll be getting those corresponding values and the same logic will go on executing but with different values. Same logic executes but with different values because three users have made the request. Like that, any number of them come, it will go on processing this. This is a very brilliant architecture what has been given to us. Clear with this? Okay. So then, so every time a request comes, so every time it will be doing the mapping actually. Every time it will be doing. Second request comes, third request comes also, it will be doing the mapping. And if it finds that servlet instance is already running, okay, first request it will create it. But second request onwards, if the instance is already there, what will happen? It will just execute it. Third request executes it. Fourth request just executes. Means, but mapping will keep on happening. Are you clear with this? Some simple code I'll give you to understand this. Okay. See this. But more in detail I'll be telling you. When the first request comes, it will take check. If it is check, it will load that class. Object will be created. Then one more object will be created. init will be called, and then service will be called. This I'll tell you very clearly in the next class, how all these things happen. This is how the vendor is writing the code. Second request onwards, what it will do? Very simple. If it is equal to check, just call the service method. Very simple. Second request onwards. We are all discussing, assuming that load on startup is not used. Please keep that in mind. Load on startup is not used. Clear? Fine. So this is done. Now coming back to our diagram. This diagram will take some time for you to understand, but you will definitely understand this. So some more things what you have to understand are what is servlet config, what is servlet context. That is the exploring what now? Library. Those will also start off now. So before I start only I am giving the introduction to what now? Servlet config, servlet context and all that. So that's how we'll start learning this. Finally application development is going to be damn easy. Once you know all this architecture, you will just concentrate on writing your business logic, putting it there. That's it. Understood? You should just know what code to write, where, how the things are getting processed here. Done? Okay. So the notes for all this has been given to you. Luckily you got documents from cluster, so you don't have to worry too much. Sir takes all your pain and gives you beautiful documents. Okay. So this is the introduction to server. It is there in the document. Step by step I have written. What happens when server starts? What happens when request comes? Perfectly I have written to you. So go through now. At server startup, you got the diagram now? Okay. So at server startup, okay, always keep the document with you. Keep the diagram with you and then read this. You'll understand very clearly. And that too especially after completion of what? Servlet. That time you read. After you complete servlet, that time you start seeing the classes from the beginning. What clear picture you'll get, you'll understand. Done? See this. At server startup, following things will happen. What? Container initializes the web.xml using the SAX parser. Container reads the data from web.xml document and stores it into Java objects. If any errors are found while parsing the document, then SAX parser exception will be thrown. And if SAX parser exception comes at server startup, then it means that application has not been deployed properly. Means, okay, application has not been, means if there are, see it is fixed. You can't use any tags of your own here. What tags you have to use in web.xml is fixed. If you use some wrong tags like this. Anyway, luckily for us Eclipse is reporting errors. Luckily for us Eclipse is reporting errors. If you use code in Notepad Edit Plus, you would have understood. See here, I will not close the tag, or I will write some mistake I will do. Try to deploy now, it will not execute. Means now the meaning is application has not been deployed properly, because now when you put your application into the server is trying to parse it. When it is trying to parse, it does not find the correct. They have written the code. Get me the value from servlet name only. Get me the value from this tag only. They have written the code. Who? Server people. So supposing instead of servlet name, I'll make some spelling mistake like this example I am telling. So they have written the code as what? Get me the value from servlet name tag. There is no tag only now. How it will get the value? So parsing will not happen. So when parsing will not happen, what will happen now? Application has not deployed properly. That's what we say. So luckily we are using Eclipse. These errors are getting avoided for us. But if you are coded in some other editors, you would have understood the hardship of it. And there will be a lot of errors. That is why you don't have to worry about the first problem. Which one? SAX parser exception. Clear? But I am explaining you all these valid things, because when you read documents, when you read solid documents, any books, these points will come up. So you should be very clear about what I am telling now. Then next, second point, write it down. We'll be seeing that, not a problem. It creates the context object. Leave that. Second point, I have not still covered that. Third point also, just write it down. We'll be covering that. All the filter instances will be created. So when server starts up, a lot of things are happening. I told you. Done. Fourth point is important for us. What is the fourth point? Second, third, leave. Thread pool will be created by the container. Understood? Threads inside the pool will be used by the container whenever client is sending the request. Means threads inside the pool will be used by the container whenever client is sending the request. Based on the client usage, container can increase the pool size and can also decrease the pool size. That is, in peak hours when more clients are coming, container will increase the thread pool size, and in the non-peak hours when client usage is less, container can decrease the pool size. Simple. So then next, servlet instances will be created for all servlets for which load on startup tag has been used. For which load on startup tag has been used, it will create it. Which one? Server only. When? During server startup time. Do not forget the heading. We are talking about when server starts up. Right? So then say, note, there are two ways a servlet instance gets created. That's why I put it very clearly here. One, when server starts up, means when you use load on startup tag. Two, when client makes a first request, if load on startup tag is not used. Done? So the server is now ready for accepting the first request from the client. Refer to your diagram, very clearly you will understand. Clear? What is happening now? Parsing is happening, thread pool is getting created, right? And it is waiting for requests. So these are the points what I covered now. Done? So again, so we will be continuing assuming that load on startup is not used. Yes, let's start seeing now. Once the server is ready and client is sending a first request to the servlet, following things will happen. Server is ready now. Thread pool ready, parsing over, everything done. Now it is waiting for what? Requests. Once the server is ready and the client is sending the first request to the servlet, following things will happen. What will happen? Web server receives the request from the web client and delegates it to the web container. Web container collects the request URI. Web container collects the request URI. Request.get URI method is there, no? That value will be actually what? Value of action attribute in form tag. Coming from the request and verifies any servlet is configured with URL pattern similar to this. If the request URI is not found with any servlet, then what will happen? 404 error. If your URI is not mapped with your, that URI is not mapped with your URL pattern. URI is which one? What is coming in the form action. URL pattern is the mapping tag what you have used. If they do not match, what will happen? 404 error. This you have got extensively. Yes? I think no need for me to show what? 404 error now. Yes. With the URI pattern, the name will be identified and the servlet class will be identified. Name will be taken, class will be identified. Container verifies that servlet class is available or not. If servlet class is not available in the specified location, you should write the class also and put it into what? This location only. You cannot put it wherever you want. So they are looking in a particular folder structure, private directory, yes or no? There only they will search who? Server. If it is there, then if it is not there, class not found exception will occur. Understood? These are very important questions to you. If the class is not there, what will happen? Class not found exception. Try it today. Understood? Then next, if the servlet class is found, then it will be loaded into the main memory. How it will be loaded? Dynamic loading. Class not for name. Dynamic loading will happen. Done? Then next, container creates the servlet instance by calling the default constructor. Whatever I explained to you, I am putting it in document now. Then next, no chance of calling any argumented constructor. Then next, container creates servlet config object and config object will be initialized with init parameters. Leave it. This point I still not covered. 8 point also. Okay, 8 point you leave it. 9 point now. Container calls init method. Just understand that much. Config object I'll be talking about very shortly. Are you clear with this? 8, 9. Then next, the 10 point. Container takes one thread from the thread pool which was created at server startup and hands over the request processing to that thread. Thread is responsible to start the processing. First it will create the request and response objects. Request object will be initialized with incoming data. All the data it will transfer now into the request object. Request means what are the different incoming data? Request parameters, request headers, etc. All will be retrieved from the HTTP request body, put into the request object. The thread then calls service method by passing request and response as arguments. Service method processes the request and provides the response to the client. Once the response is handed over to the client, request and response objects will be destroyed and the thread will be returned back to the pool. The servlet instance is not destroyed and waits for further requests from the client. Clearly pin to pin I have documented point by point. Now see one note I have put there. Note, if the servlet instance gets created at server startup, because of load on startup tag, then its constructor will be called, servlet config object will be created, leave that, but init method will be called, and then the servlet waits for requests. This I showed you with output only. Object is also created and init method is also executed. Done. Now next, assuming that now servlet instance is ready either by load on startup or by first request. Anything now, condition. Servlet instance is ready now. Done. So that's what is the next point. If second or more request comes to the same servlet, or if the request comes to a servlet which got instantiated during server startup. You understand this point very clearly. What is the point? If second or more request comes, or if the request comes to a servlet which got instantiated during server startup, following things will happen. Understood? What are the things which will happen? A thread is taken from the pool now. That's all. Only thread will be taken from the pool. Creates new request and response object and calls the service method. That's it. And after service method, it completes execution and provides response. And these two objects are destroyed and thread is returned back to the pool. Simple. When servlet instance is ready now, only two things will happen. When not ready, all that will happen. Done? Finally, what happens and the server shuts down? Yes, what is happening when the server is shutting down? Container destroys all the servlet instances by calling what? Destroy method. First it will call destroy method and then it will destroy the servlet. So be careful with the statement what I used. First the container calls the destroy method and then destroys the servlet. So one time I am using the destroy as what? Method. Other time I am using destroy as what? Verb. Action, what action it is doing. Okay, so means again get the point. Container destroys all the servlet instances by calling, first it will call destroy method, then it will destroy it. Understood? Very important question, that's why I am stressing. Clear? Then next, container destroys all the config objects, leave that. Container destroys all the filter instance, leave that, write it, but I will be explaining you. Context object will be destroyed, thread pool will be destroyed. When the server shuts down, the thread pools will be destroyed. Lastly, web.xml is unloaded, means the objects which contain the data belonging to web.xml will be destroyed. Everything is closed. So this is the complete picture and process of how things are getting executed. Done? So that's why remember this diagram. This diagram I have created so that you will get a picture now. Whenever you think about solid container, this should be in your head now. And every day you will be working on this only now. Clear? So we are doing R&D now. See, first what we did is we learned what a servlet is. Then we saw how to use servlet for building applications. Now we are taking control over the subject so that we can write better applications, because we'll get a lot of problems while writing the code. Okay, so more control you take over the subject, more better you can write the applications. So we have completed the architecture. Okay, next class what I'll do is I'll show you full code, how vendors are implementing that API and all that I'll show you. Some more interview questions I'll be covering. Okay, so these classes are very, very important from interview point of view. I'm stressing so much. Clear? Okay then, that's it.